Michigan got trounced on Saturday by Texas from beginning to end. They got whomped. And I don't know how many people I saw on social media say, yeah, this is what happens when you don't know what the next play is. Or this is what happens when you don't have the other team's signals. I don't think that's the reason. I don't think Connor Stallions, or the lack of Connor Stallions for Michigan, is to blame for why they got their asses kicked on Saturday and why it's likely to happen a couple of more times throughout the 2024 season. I don't think that has anything to do with it. Really, honestly, truly, I don't. Do you know what I do think has played a role in that? It's Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh sold out for the 2023 season. You know what Michigan returned on the 2024 roster talent-wise? Colston Loveland and Donovan Edwards on the offensive side of the football. They had a quarterback issue, and they knew they had a quarterback issue. You know what they did about it? Nothing. They didn't do anything. Didn't hop in the portal and try to get somebody. They didn't throw a NIL bag at somebody. They didn't try to rip Dylan Raiola away from Nebraska. They didn't do any of those things. They said, we're going to ride with who's already on the roster. And that looks like a bad decision. But Jim Harbaugh sold out for 2023. Brought everybody back that he could. Didn't invest much in what 2024 looked like or 2025 looked like. It's why I believe that there wasn't about to be a Jim Harbaugh coaching in 2024 if he didn't get an NFL job. Jim Harbaugh did everything he could to make Michigan a contender in 2023 and get out of there before the cover got bare. If they don't have the players that they had in 2023 or in 2022 or in 2021, for that matter, they are not great at every position like they were before, or at least really good at every position like they were before. If you look at that defensive lineup, I don't know that there's makes you feel great one way or another about how talented they are or how many first-round picks are on that team. I don't see a fantastic defensive, and maybe that's just right now. Maybe it's just right now. But they don't look great at a lot of spots. And I don't think that has anything to do with Counter Stallions. For as much as it pains me to say, yes, they did know what was coming when Connor Stallions was there, and they knew all sorts of signs and they knew all sorts of information about their opponent that you can argue whether they should or should not have known. Michigan won the 2023 national championship because they were really good. They were good offensively, offensive line, the quarterback spot, at running back, at wide receiver. On the defensive side of the football, especially the defensive backfield, they were good. Does it play some role in it? Sure. But Connor Stallions didn't have the lowdown on Washington and Alabama. They beat Washington and Alabama for the national championship because they were better than Washington and Alabama. And they didn't beat Texas on Saturday because they weren't better than Texas. Name me a position group that they were better in and better at than Texas was on Saturday. Quarterback? No. Offensive line? No. Running back? No. Wide receiver? No. Maybe defensive back? Maybe. That's all there is to it. And I know that this is a hard and somewhat difficult pill to swallow for Ohio State fans, for Notre Dame fans, for Michigan State fans. You have to get over it, and you have to move on. That doesn't mean you have to forget, but the idea that you're going to blame I think it's comparing apples to oranges. Michigan used to have a really talented roster coupled with having the information of what their opponent was going to run. That is a deadly combination. Now, they don't have nearly the talented roster, and they have conceivably stopped their illegal sign stealing scheme. One has much more to do with what happens on the field than the other does. Because you know what? Even if Connor Stalions was still on the sidelines, even if Connor Stalions had a ridiculous notepad and an extreme understanding of what the opponent wanted to do, I don't know that Michigan is good enough in 2024, even equipped with what the other team is going to do in any given situation, to still win that game. Texas is head and shoulders better than Michigan. Connor Stalions is not to blame for why they did not win on Saturday. Jim Harbaugh is. Jim Harbaugh left the cupboard completely bare. Colston Loveland is a very good tight end. And in Michigan, Colston Loveland very well might be a first-round pick. And Will Johnson might very well be a first-round pick. Outside of that, I don't think Donovan Edwards, who especially thus far has played like a first-round pick, and running backs don't become first-round picks anymore. They don't have the level of talent that they once did. And that's pretty well all it boils down to. That's at the end of the day. And why don't they have that talent? Why aren't they at that level in 2024? Because Jim Harbaugh said, this is it. This is the last hurrah. And I'm going to push all my chips into the middle of the table and sell out for 2023. And if it works, great. It's going to lead to something really good for me. If it doesn't, you know what? We had a hell of a run. And things worked out. He was willing to look past Connor Stalions on the sideline, standing right next to coordinators, giving signals. He was willing to look past a lot of things because he got tunnel vision. I think we've probably all been there where you get so singularly focused on what you want to accomplish, what you want to get done, that you're willing to maybe do some things that in retrospect you shouldn't have, or wish you wouldn't have, or done things differently. And Jim Harbaugh might come around to that someday. I would find that doubtful, but he might. But that's what happened. And so when you cash that check, when you push your chips all into the table, you got to pay the repercussions of that, have the consequences of your actions. Well, Jim Harbaugh doesn't, but the Michigan football program has to pay the consequences of those actions. When you don't focus on a 2024 recruiting class or a 2023 recruiting class, when you push everything into, you see it in like baseball every year where somebody goes for broke at the trade deadline, says, by God, this is the year we're going to win the World Series. And it mostly doesn't work. And they pay for it down the line that they gave up a bunch of prospects that, God, I wish we had that guy. Now, Michigan didn't have to make any trades or didn't lose any future recruits, but they didn't put a whole lot of emphasis on recruiting guys. They didn't get deep into the portal in 2024 to make their 2024 roster better. Jim Harbaugh took the best assistants with him to the Los Angeles Chargers, sent the best players to the NFL, and told Sharon Moore, figure it out. Congratulations. You're now the head coach of the University of Michigan, and you have a disaster on your hands. And it doesn't have anything to do with Connor Stallions. It has everything to do with Jim Harbaugh. And I don't know that Michigan fans will ever see it any other way other than, man, that guy sure was great, wasn't he? He won a national championship for us, beat our rivals several times in a row, probably eventually put us on NCAA probation, and left the new head coach in a world of hurt. But what a guy. He sure loves our school. Even though immediately after winning the national championship, he bolted. That guy's great. And I don't know how you don't see that writing right in front of your face, but here we are. Connor Stallions ain't to blame for 2024 Michigan. Jim Harbaugh is. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you are listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.